Thank you, Doug. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay in the back? Back there? Good. Great. Thank you. It's an honor and pleasure to be here today with you. I'm going to talk about a lot of things that are going on in the community, but as many of you will be if you're not already, a lot of the work I'm going to talk about is based upon a lot of people that came before me. And I'm standing on a lot of people's shoulders with all the great things that are happening out there in the community. I'm also really want to point out that a lot of what we're going to talk about today is in partnership, and it's good work that's being done by other people out in the community. So I want to be really clear, I'm not taking credit for all this stuff, but informing you of all the amazing transformation that's happening in our community. I want to thank you all for being here and kind of set the tone of your importance in our society. You guys are the next generation of leaders. I was listening to NPR the other day, and they were talking about some policy issues, and they used the metaphor, imagining a snake that swallowed a basketball, and you see that basketball moving through the snake. They made the metaphor for the basketball being the baby boom generation, and it's just about all the way through the snake. When that generation moves on, there are going to be so many opportunities available for us. It's already starting to happen. I know in my sector, in the nonprofit sector, they're forecasting 2 positions available for every qualified person. So you guys are the future. We've got a lot of opportunities to take on together, and I'm excited to show you what else is happening in our community with people that are starting to step towards those opportunities. I am a 4th generation Toledoan. I've made my choice to build my career here. I'm raising my son here, and I'm really excited about the promise that Toledo has to offer. I also have a really interesting and unique job in this city. I'm in arts administration, but in any given day, I could be working with economic development, housing, healthcare, on and on and on throughout the spectrum of society. So I get a really unique view of what's happening in Toledo. I'm going to introduce a concept that I want to talk about today that kind of changes some language about the nonprofit sector. I recently had the opportunity to attend a executive leadership forum put on by the Americans for the Arts at the Sundance Institute that was held in conjunction with the National Arts Policy Roundtable. And the former head of the Dodge Foundation, David Grant, was there as our facilitator. And he's writing a book called Social Profit. And he's asking everyone to consider a change in the lexicon that we talk about our work in the nonprofit sector to really talk about the social value we bring to things. And I think that's, engaging people, inspiring change. You guys focus and function around social profit and the networks that you build here. But more so in the nonprofit sector, we're forced to measure what we do all the time. We have to be accountable, which is appropriate and important, but there's so much other benefit that we deliver to the community. And I'm going to highlight some of that in the presentation today. I think it's really important to think about, though, because right now this whole sector, a whole service sector in our community is introducing themselves by saying we're negating ourselves before we start. And I think we have to make that pivot and really get people to understand about all the great things that happen. We all know that the arts create jobs, revitalize neighborhoods, it enhances education, renews vacant property, and attracts talented employees, makes the condition more vibrant for our businesses to attract talented employees. I'm going to start with kind of a really big picture here and talk about the economic impact of the arts, and then move down to the ground level to show you what's happening here in our local community. In 2013, Bowling Green State University launched a statewide economic impact of the arts study. And this was done to help make the case and advocate for the highest level of public funding for the arts through the state budget. The arts generate over $8 billion in employee wages. They generate $2.4 billion in federal, state, and local tax revenue. They contribute more than $23.6 billion to Ohio's economy and support over 197,000 jobs. The arts are big business in our state. They're also big business in our community. It was 2012, I was in my office and I got a phone call from a professor at UCLA. Thomas Main, who's a professor at UCLA, had started this initiative called Supra Studios, and they were commissioned to look at what the contemporary condition was of cities in the world. They started global, they tightened that focus up and came back to the United States, and they focused on 10 mid-sized American cities to look at what the DNA was of that city, what their competitive advantages were, and what were the conditions that were evolving so they could help prescribe to local governments how they could advance their communities, the business community, how they could advance their communities. And they took a look at Toledo. And the top 2 potential items they came up with were future of energy and urban reuse, and the continued development of creative industries. For us, that was a big validation of the development that's happening here in the arts-related business sector. They also made a little bit of a pivot, and it's something I think that we all look at or have been conditioned to look at with a negative mindset, which is space and vacancy. It's actually an asset for us, and I'll touch on that a little bit more as we go through the presentation. People talk about the economic impact of the arts. Well, what does that mean, and how do we measure it, and why is it relevant? The Americans for the Arts, who are the national policy leaders in this area, defined the creative industries as museums and collections, performing arts, visual arts, photography, film, radio, and television, design and publishing, and art schools and services. And the numbers I'm going to give you here, I want to just kind of key in on. These are only folks that have a federal tax ID number. So these are, they're registered with Dun & Bradstreet, and that's how we have their data. It doesn't include hundreds of artists locally. It doesn't include startup nonprofits or social profit organizations. Bowling Green, in 2007, did an economic impact study on the 27 counties in Northwest Ohio and what the creative industries do as far as economic impact there. They generate $24 billion annually. They support 33,000 jobs. It generates $97 million in state local tax revenue and $151 million in federal tax revenues. That's big business, right? We were, as a sector, really pushed into using this data to validate. We all know the value of the arts and what they bring to our lives, but as we head through a recession, we have to make our financial case, what we do for a community and the economy, to make sure that we're speaking in the terms that everyone else is being forced to speak in. If you take those employment equivalents, just to kind of put that into perspective, that's the same number of people as 10 North Toledo Jeep plants or 95 Bass Pro Shops or 10 Whirlpool plants, and it's equal to the entire labor force of Sandusky County. So you really start to, it gives me the pause to start to ask the question, what if we could develop policy to help accelerate those businesses in our economy and attract more locally and make that our competitive advantage? If you boil that study down, the seat of Northwest Ohio is Lucas County. In Lucas County, in the 2014 data, there are 872 arts-related businesses employing almost 4,000 people. We take that a step back down and look at the city of Toledo proper. In 2010, there were 424 arts-related businesses employing 3,035 people, and actually, as we went through the recession, we saw that number increase in creative business, which went up to 600 art-related businesses, which employed more than 3,146 people, again, not counting the folks that aren't in Dun & Bradstreet, which I like to point out is more than Owens Corning employs in the entire state of Ohio. It's big business in Toledo, and we've got an opportunity to advance and grow that. It's also, I think, big business used to mean one giant corporation in the community, and we still rely on those for manufacturing in the auto industry, but the model's changing. It's changing back to more small businesses in our community, and this is a great growth opportunity for us. Based upon this, the Arts Commission offers a broad variety of programs and services. They break out into 4 kind of core areas, and I'm going to touch on those. I'm also going to touch on we're maintaining the integrity and the intent of everything that we do, but we're also modifying our strategies to see how we can advance the economic development of our community and make our city more usable. We've got an absolutely amazing city here. People just aren't using it enough. So we look at how we can modify our programs and strategies and create partnerships and collaboration to make Toledo a more usable city and a better place to live and work. We run the Art in Public Places program for the city of Toledo. It's also known as the 1% for Art program. We're a leader in the nation in that. In 1977, council passed an ordinance to allow 1% of the city's capital improvement budget to go to public art throughout the community. That program was modeled by the state, and we've actually, Ann Arbor's been coming down to Toledo to get some tips as they go through some struggles with their program. We're nationally known and should be very proud of that. This project here speaks to the modification of strategy. Does anybody familiar with the You Are Here project that we did? Just a few folks. We had, in 2012, we had the International Glass Art Society Conference here in Toledo, and there were people in town from 26 countries around the world. We were trying to figure out a project to get them to engage and travel our community. We had an idea, we got stuck, we turned to the local chapter of the American Institute of Graphic Artists, who were also largely young professionals, and asked them to come up with a project for us. They came back with an initiative that created 100 3-foot dots, as if you were on a map. You drop yourself pinpoint, you are here. They went out and talked to Hanson Inc. and got a partnership for technology where they each had a QR code, and then we commissioned, had a competition for local artists to complete the designs that were reflective of the specific location each dot was going. So the members of the community could come through, they could find a dot, click on the QR code, find out about the location. They created a competition that the first 60 people that got the dots ended up getting limited edition posters. Within 24 hours, people were showing up at our office with handmade You Are Here t-shirts looking for the dots. We started getting letters from people that had decided to not go to Ann Arbor for the weekend, not go to Cleveland for the weekend, but explore this program. They found a Mexican restaurant they never knew about. They were in the Mexican restaurant. Some Toledoan thought they were tourists. They recommended that they went to 3 other places. And instead of going out of town and spending their income, their discretionary money, they invested it in Toledo, which is important for us because we know that cultural tourists spend twice as much as other tourists. And we created this kind of multi-level platform where we got people exploring and using our city again through arts and culture. Our Young Artists at Work program is something we've just celebrated the 20th anniversary. We raise money throughout the year to employ 14 to 18-year-olds. They work for minimum wage for 6 weeks in the summer under the instruction of local artists. They're at-risk and diverse in their backgrounds. We had 50 kids in the program this year. 25% of those kids came from households of less than $10,000 in annual income, which make them major breadwinners. That's important. That's not the most important thing about the program. That was a sketch that they did in that last slide. We were given the opportunity to create a 4-story mural on the side of our building that's on the Toledo Museum of Art's campus. The kids developed the design and executed the project. They had to go through a formal artist presentation with Dr. Kennedy at the museum, who beat them up pretty good and intimidated them. And they designed and, in a healthy way, and grew them and complimented them after the fact. They designed and implemented this project, right? It's important that we employ kids, but it's more important that they understand that they have a right and an opportunity to control the way our city looks in the future, and that there's room for them as leaders. Through YAW, we don't necessarily just want to employ people. We want to spark the imagination and empower young leaders so they have the opportunity to go back to their communities and lead and share those experiences. And when you have a 14-year-old kid look you in the eye and start crying, telling you don't know how much this program has done for them, you know you're on the right track. So we're very proud, and after the challenging review they got on it, we were proud to announce that Dr. Kennedy at the dedication called this the newest work of the Toledo Museum of Art, which I think those kids floated a little bit up off the ground when he said that. We Live, Work, Create Toledo, which I'll talk about, specific strategies we've developed to promote use the arts as economic development and promote the reuse of our city. And then advocacy. We are, it's little known, but we are all over the place representing Toledo at the Arts Commission. The Americans for the Arts is the organization that provided the data for you earlier. We're involved in the national conversation. A subset of that is the United States Urban Arts Federation. The top populated 60 cities in the United States with local arts agencies convene twice a year, and we're involved in that dialogue, making sure we're relevant, making sure we're stealing the most appropriate programs from other cities when possible. The Ohio Citizens for the Arts, they exist to advocate for the highest level of public funding for the arts possible in the state of Ohio. This is specifically important to Toledo. We are the only major metropolitan area in the state without a dedicated funding source for arts and culture. That is due to our former title is the most corporate-rich city in the state that went on through the 80s until a lot of those businesses began to move away. There was never a standardized system put in place for funding. Through the advocacy of the Ohio Citizens for the Arts and the Ohio Arts Council, over $500,000 came back to our community in state revenues to support arts and culture. And then there's the Toledo Area Cultural Leaders. We are organized in Toledo in the arts and culture in the way that most communities aren't, and in a way that many sectors aren't in our community. These are the participating organizations, everyone from the museum to the metro parks, the Arts Commission to Imagination Station. We meet weekly. We look at addressing issues of statewide tourism, education, economic development, and we're really taking a pivot outward to see how we can help drive the community forward and use what we have in such tremendous cultural assets to advance the community, to help business development, to promote marketing and tourism. It's a really great group. As I mentioned, if we look around other cities in the state, we don't have the funding mechanism. The gorilla in the room is Cuyahoga County over in Cleveland. They were able to pass a 10-year cigarette and tobacco excise tax that in 2011 generated $15.2 million for Cuyahoga County alone. If they were a state arts agency, they would be the third best funded state arts agency in the United States of America. It's drawing and attracting young people. It's retaining creative talent. It's causing innovation. It's stimulating business development. We know that centralized funding mandates centralized marketing, increased community awareness, and participant patronage by incentivizing artists and creative businesses. And it's something that we're looking at collectively here as a community on how do we get something set up in Toledo. We began in 2006 with the development of the Live, Work, Create Toledo program. And I have a son, he's 8 years old. It's the kind of demarcation line for me. All of this stuff has happened since he's been here, which has been a tremendous amount of progression in the local creative community. We wanted to develop a program that elevated and centralized the awareness of our creative assets locally, and then use that to stimulate economic development, and community revitalization and connect people to the use of our city again. We had to figure out where to start, right? And at that time, there was no Huntington Center. The warehouse district hadn't yet quite hit its boon. So we looked out to see where people were gathering most. And we had a high concentration of artists in the area in and around the warehouse district. There were 3 galleries at the time down there. But we had major attractions, Fifth Third Field Convention Center. Huntington Center wasn't there yet. Owens Corning being there, but at the time, I don't know if any of you were downtown around that time, you'd see conventioners come out of the convention bureau and look around like, where the heck am I supposed to go? You know, where do I eat food? You know, none of those things were there. So we started a series of strategies to help change that and to let people know. I mean, again, these are the one with the flag is Madhouse. Madhouse is a design and branding firm. They made a choice to move from Perrysburg back downtown and build their economic future in our city. The other is a completely different model, which is Jerry Gray over at Beaux-Arts, which is right by the farmer's market. He went out, we were talking about this work, he went out, found a building owner that would let him build a live workspace in the building, and he's done probably no less than 50 art shows in there, drawing hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands, downtown, and creating these clusters, these social conditions where we can connect and grow our community together. The art walk started with, I think, 30 people in 3 galleries at the first one. Now we're consistently 1,500 to 2,000 people, and we've got some strategies I'll talk about later to really broaden that, make it stronger. The gallery loop and holiday loop, when people are new and don't know or are still afraid of, I remember the time, I have a studio downtown, I remember the time where it was just me and the homeless people down there, There's nobody else around. People are afraid like there's something scary downtown. No, we're just people, If they're intimidated, we've created a gallery loop, a holiday loop, we commission buses to move people through the community so they become more familiar. I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but there's one coming up on the 22nd from 3 to 8 p.m. And a holiday loop that we're really excited about. And then Artomatic 419, we started taking over vacant building space in the downtown, filling it up with artists. We started with the first one with 100 artists and 1,200 people came out, the building next to Manos at 1717 Adams Street. In our last incarnation, we had over 800 performing visual and literary artists and over 12,000 people coming out to explore. We had 60,000 square foot of vacant building space that Dave Venable and Data Management Systems made available to us. It was the former Heidelberg Metropolitan Distributing Center for Miller downtown. And if you would have told me that people from Perrysburg and Sylvania would be pushing strollers around at Summit and LaGrange at 11:30 on Saturday night, I wouldn't have taken you serious. But through clustering and building community and connecting and in culture, we make we feel safe. We explore new places. It opens up familiarity. It opens up the potential for economic development. And then Soundtrack, which is something that we do along the Adams Street corridor that features the talent of local performing and literary artists in partnership with the businesses, again, to promote the usability of our city. We also took a step. We were able to secure a pretty major grant with the help of Congresswoman Capter from the Federal Small Business Administration and ran something called the Well-Fed Artist Workshop Series. We had over 200 attendees. We did marketing, copyright, law, all these core issues that you really don't get trained on in art school to help build the capacity of our local artist population. If you know anybody, this Saturday over at the Heather Downs Branch Library, they're running an Etsy workshop on how to sell your things online. So if you know anybody that could capitalize on that, there's another one coming up. And we saw a tremendous amount of growth happen in downtown. The number of artist studios have doubled. There's now work being done on, preliminary work being done on artist live workspace in several of the buildings downtown. We saw the gallery spike up to 11, but there's this kind of strange phenomenon where that's gone up. Now culture's moved out on the street where we've lost some of those galleries, but there's more artist vending downtown. They're creating pop-up spaces where they're finding vacant buildings or hotels that they can create partnership with and selling their wares. We're seeing many new arts-related businesses, which I'll talk about. Uptown really has reached out and created a partnership specifically in the art walks. They're doing all kinds of things up there, and we're finally seeing people walk from the warehouse district over to Uptown, which I couldn't get a copy of the slide. The Design Center downtown did this wonderful illustration where they take the footprint of now Franklin Park Mall again and lay it over downtown, and you would still be in the mall if you walked from one government center to the Erie Street Market in downtown, right? Our downtown is basically the footprint of the entire mall, and people don't think about it that way. But it's highly walkable. It's not that big. It's the size of a neighborhood in most other major cities. We're seeing a lot of creative clusters develop, neighborhoods taking responsibility and launching initiatives, and many of those engage street and public art. This is an artist designed bike rack that we've been doing around town, around some of the clusters, and we have a yarn bomber, maybe 2 in Toledo, and yarn bombing's kind of been dubbed a feminine approach to graffiti or other forms of street art. We had an artist that submitted a bike rack design for sewing needles, and as soon as that thing was out there, she was out there yarn bombing it, which is great. It's citizens actively engaged in the way our community looks, and in creating punctuation that there's creativity and activity and opportunity here in our community. So we've been doing, I call this analog mapping. We're working towards digital mapping here. But we took a blow up of downtown, identified where the public art is, where the galleries are, where the cultural venues are, where the arts-related businesses are, and started to map those out. We're in the beginning stages of taking the art walks, the culture loop, a holiday loop, and merging those all into one event, creating fixed locations, creating a fixed bus route, partnering with TARDA, and having these happen every month, year-round, on the same date to kind of merge the strategies for maximum impact. TARDA has a grant fund available that we're working with them on. It's actually JARC, it's Job Access Reverse Commute, and it's, again, to get people to use our city again, re-centralize, which is something we heard about last week at the CEOs for Cities conference, the efficiency that needs to be built around density and clustering again. So we're really excited about those opportunities, and we're going to, again, merge our strategies by using public art at these locations. So I know if I get off the bus and see the big pink question mark, I'm 2 blocks from the School for the Arts, and using public art as placemaking and landmark. We start to do that with the artist design bike racks. We use these as connective nodes in between these creative clusters in our community. We're seeing businesses that get an artist design bike rack turning around and taking their own capital and investing in murals. They're really fun. At first, it's a little frustrating when you put one of these out on the street and then you come back the next day to see if anybody's using it and they chain their bike to the light pole right next to the bike rack. But we'll get them there. We'll get them there. And then we see the neighborhoods. One of the amazing examples is South Toledo, how they've really stepped up and created a partnership with Bowling Green State University to create murals along the Broadway corridor. Not a lot of people were really excited about driving slow through the Broadway corridor before, just simply based on perception, not anything actual. Now, with the partnership that they've set up, they started bringing in Mario Torrero from San Diego every year. He works with artists from Bowling Green State University. Mario is best known as Mario from the Barrio. He founded Chicano Park, the mural initiative out in San Diego that took on a lot of social issues with his work. And now he's really invested to Toledo coming back. I mean, this guy will show up and in 2 weeks he'll paint like 13 murals with these students. But what that's doing is taking ownership over community. What that's doing is inspiring other groups to do that. The one in the upper right is actually Ola, which is an organization of Latino artists who have taken to doing the work when he's not here and really reinvesting. And the Sofia Quintero Center is doing so many amazing things for that community over there. It's really, really important. And murals are very much in vogue right now. The one in the upper right and lower left are on the Uptown Green building, which will now be the wellness center. There'll be a grocery store going into that building based upon the visibility that was brought to the building by the project in no small part. Those 2 projects the Arts Commission did in partnership with Art Corner Toledo, which is run by Rachel Richardson. And they were funded with OCIC money, a new venture capital fund to improve the quality of life around some of the low-income housing developments that we have in the community. It's a statewide thing, and it's really important that just because you don't have a lot of money, we need to have economic and social inclusion, and they're making investment in arts to improve the communities around their investments, which in turn is then stimulating economic development and revitalizing buildings, and it's just a beautiful cycle to watch happen. The other 2, one is by Black Kite and the Toledo Loves Love Wall. Those were completely done by Art Corner Toledo. Rachel Richardson coordinated the artist, and we see, hundreds. You can go online. There are hundreds of graduation and wedding pictures now of people coming back downtown to take their pictures in front of this mural, which otherwise was a vacant parking lot for probably 20 years, connecting them to our community, creating a sense of place. Like these people that got married and came down there for the pictures, they will always remember that place. They're now connected to our community. And I think that's one of the social profit elements that the arts have the opportunity to bring to the table. We also see a whole bunch of people that are making the choice to invest their economic future in our city and are taking the chance to step up. The probably pioneers. We have Sean Messenger up here in their glass blowing studio that's down underneath the high-level bridge. Her and her husband Jack are internationally known glass artists. They have an amazing studio down there. David Eichenberg paints in that building. David Eichenberg's been featured in the Smithsonian portraiture competition and was third place in the BP Royal British competition. He's collected in Europe. Nobody knows about it. You know, he's down there working, investing, making his future. In the upper right, we have Jules Webster at the Art Supply Depot. She started, she was able to secure some investment by selling her own ceramic work and making t-shirts and selling them to build enough capital where she could create an arts-related business in our community and start her future here. Not only is it an art supply store, but it's a place for social interaction and community development where people come together. It's a little dark, but we have Jeremy Link and Doug Camphor in the replica of the crocodile they did for the museum. They're down on in the old Oak and Produce building on Huron Street. Because of that project and others, they're working for the museum, the Indianapolis Zoo, the Toledo Zoo, the Metro Park, and they're growing creative businesses in our community. And then Adam Goldberg, who's the grandson of the Okens, has opened up Gathered Glass. There's a hot shop, a fine art glass studio down there. It's really great because that was one of the first fireproof buildings in our community. So it's great to see a hot shop go in there. But more importantly, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, they did a fundraiser for Toledo Streets in that building where they used the arts, renovated vacant building stock to help promote social causes in our community. And there's really dynamic opportunities that exist out there for us. This is coming up on the 22nd. Jessica Crossfield, if you follow the roller derby girls locally, you'll know her better as Betty Ford, has started Handmade Toledo. She started coordinating hand makers, independent crafters around the community and was doing pop-ups throughout the community. She's now secured the building at 1717 Adams Street as her permanent residence. Handmade Toledo will be taking place in conjunction with the Holiday Loop coming up. We've got Seed Co-working down on St. Clair Street, right? A place for startups to work where they can remove that isolationism of working at home. They can have shared resources. They can have official meeting facilities. They can develop their entrepreneurial spirit and business opportunities in our city. And then we have LASO, which is an outpost over in East Toledo. That gallery is doing some amazing things over there, but they're not happy just being a gallery in East Toledo. They're organizing the Main Street Creative Corridor, where they just did the Main Street Music and Art Festival for the first time and drew 1,500 people back over to Main Street in East Toledo to actively use our city. And that's happening through arts and culture. If you want to think about, we just closed this out, if you want to think about the potential for innovation, the glass movement is, you don't need to look any further. In 52 years ago, for the first time anywhere in the world, artists took glass production out of major manufacturing facilities and into small furnaces the way that ceramicists may use a kiln in their house. That started a global movement that was born out of Toledo. And these are just, you know, hot glass was just, or glass was just featured in New York Times as the best art form to make an investment in for your future. That started here. We're looking at moving things forward for the community. We're leading an effort right now for strategic planning for arts and culture. We know that major investment from outside sources won't happen in our community unless we have a strategy that's formally adopted by the city and county government. We've also taken a pivot. We saw a lot of success in the downtown. We're now working with 7 more neighborhoods in and around downtown. But we're not telling them what we need. We're going into those communities and we're asking them what they need. We're asking them what culture means. We're asking them what their assets are. And we're helping map strategies that can help advance as many of those as possible, but give them the information to advance themselves as well. We continue to work with the Toledo area culture leaders. We'll be meeting with Dr. Durant tomorrow. We're working with Bowling Green to launch a new economic impact study early in the spring. As I mentioned, we're going to work on the expansion of a yet-to-be-branded year-round culture loop. And we're going to continue to strategically grow and partner what's going on out in the community. If we look forward to next April, give me the last week of March and the first week of May, we've got the opening of the aquarium, the running of the walleye up the river and all those fishermen that come to our community, the last game of the walleye, the opening day of the mud hens, Automatic 419 Day, and the biggest week in America birding, which has just started a few years ago, which I don't know if you know what that is. Over like 60,000 people travel from around the world to catch the migratory pattern of birds across Lake Erie, because that's where they all come before they fly. That's hundreds of thousands of people using our community. Can we market together? Can we brand that? Can we push that outward to show people what's going on, but also push it back inward? Because we got a lot of hard work to do with people that live here that don't understand what they have. And we have to work on changing those perceptions as well. I missed one, and I didn't have time to put it in my presentation, but I also want to talk about, just real quick, the power of the individual and mention one of my good friends and coworkers, Ryan Bunch. How many of you heard of the zombie crawl? Right? That's a big show of hands. About 4 years ago, Ryan was sitting at home going, wouldn't it be cool if we had a bunch of people dress up as zombies and go down Adams Street, and then typed it into Facebook, and 600 people showed up the first year, right? That's all it takes to get an idea going. This year, it partnered with a newly formed organization that's going to reinvest all proceeds into the development of Adams Street. Those businesses along Adams Street formed this organization. They ticketed for the first time. Over 7,000 people bought wristbands to attend that event last month. They generated over $20,000 that they're going to invest right back into the community from one dude with a beard sitting at his computer having a weird idea. You know, that's all it takes. And it's ours to do. Moving forward, we get a lot of bad press, but I don't know if you all caught it. Forbes just ranked Toledo 4th in opportunity for growth. In the United States. It was Columbus, Rochester, Pittsburgh, then Toledo. This past weekend, Huffington Post just named us as one of 5 American cities that's back from the dead, sticking with the zombie theme. And I think it's participation in community, and leadership is us. It's ours, it's yours, It's our opportunity to take this thing forward, and it's our responsibility. Nobody else is going to shape the future of our community the way we want it, but us, right? And it's important. And I think it's, I'm, as I joke, I'm on the old side of young these days. But people helped me get to where I am, right? People reached out, mentored me, gave me an opportunity. And I think as we all move forward, we have a responsibility to reach back and do the same. And make sure that we're bringing people along and growing that. And then reinvest and support, use these facilities that exist in our community. Use them in your work, right? If you work in the healthcare field, the museum is developing all these great programs around visual literacy. We know now that nurses and doctors are being trained to understand visual arts so they could better understand, just by visually looking at their patients, what's going on with their body to give them a better diagnosis. We know that businesses commission glass artists to teach their employees how to blow glass so they understand how to work better as a team together. And some of the things that have to happen when you move in those ways physically with each other people. There are opportunities. There are opportunities for you to get involved in almost any nonprofit. All the nonprofits are looking for you folks right now because their donors are aging out. Their support base is aging out, and there's a huge opportunity there. Whether it's you want to serve on an organization or whether you give $5, you're participating in growing the community. If you want to reinvest in those and whatever your interest is, there's a big date coming up. It's September 2nd. It's known as Giving Tuesday. Many of the regional nonprofit organizations, it's an all-online fundraising day, and for every, I think, up to $1,000 that each organization that participates gets, the Community Foundation is going to match that. dollar to dollar. So there's an opportunity to maximize that. There's an opportunity for you to go to your employers and find out which one of them have match programs and maximize that. But to invest, we have to take care of these things. A generation of people took care of them before us. It's our responsibility now. The holiday loop, again, I mentioned, is coming up on Saturday, November 22nd from 3 to 8 p.m. There'll be buses provided and circulating, and you could go to our website, which is theartscommission.org, and find out information and print maps for that. Like I said when I started, I have the opportunity to work with a lot of different community entities, and I had the opportunity to work with the land bank 2 years ago on a project. And I want to, you know, they had a property, and I want to ask you, what do you think about Toledo when you look at that, right? What do you think about Toledo when you look at that? You know, when we change the ways we perceive our problems and bring a little bit of creativity to them, we change the way the community perceives itself and others perceive us, and we have a better foundation to move forward with. And I'll just leave you with a quote. I've been really interested recently in reading George Stevens. George Stevens was the second director of the Toledo Museum of Art. Before there was the building, he would take one painting by this guy named Graf Acklin. He would sit a chair down in a room, and he would put the painting on the floor, and he would bring the wealthiest people on down to the moderately income people in our community, and he would sit them down, and he would say, "Imagine Toledo with this world-class, class museum, and what the potential is," tirelessly until he raised the funds. You know, the quote is from him, and I'll leave you with it. It's, "No city is great until it rests the eye, feeds the intellect, and leads its people out of the bondage of the commonplace." Thank you.